So there are protests going on right now in Cuba because, well, Cuba is a communist country and it sucks. There's nothing there. Money has been hyperinflated. We're talking hundreds of percent inflation for years now in Cuba, the Cuban peso, and they're using Canadian dollars, according to some people down there. So, um, of course, this happens. It happens to every socialist country. Look at Venezuela. Look at North Korea. They have to have a lockdown of information because they can't compete, right? When you have, when people from communist countries, they see other countries and say, well, this is better than our country. If you're the leadership of that country, quote unquote leadership of that country, you don't want these people to see that. And then it makes you wonder, why does socialism persist as an ideology? Why is egalitarianism a thing? It still is. You can go to any university in the West, whether it be Western Europe or in the United States, and people preach egalitarianism. They preach, and a lot of the students preach socialism. Some even preach communism. And it makes you wonder why. I mean, you look at these examples and they always say, well, that's not real communism. Like their version would work better or something like that. But, it's more than that, okay? So the reason why egalitarianism, which is a byproduct of nihilism, which I've talked about a lot on my channel, the reason why it's a thing is because it appeals to people that are essentially lazy. They don't want to produce anything. They want the equality of a result. They don't want the equality of opportunity because not everybody's equal. Some people are willing to put more effort into things than other people. Some people are just more talented than other people are. And if you didn't have the talents, then you just have to work really hard. And they don't want to do that. And so they want a cover. They want to say that, that it's something else's fault why they fail. They don't want to blame themselves. And that's really what it comes down to. We've seen this over and over again. I just watched a video of a young lady talking about what the situation's like in Cuba, and I'll put a link in the description below. It's a YouTube video. And yet, you always think every time you see something like that, well, if everybody sees that, they'll stop preaching communism. Well, it's not going to work like that, because the way out of that in these people's minds is that, oh, that's not real communism. Communism requires state control of everything. It's an authoritarian ideology. And that's just one thing. Socialism is more of a velvet glove version of it, but nonetheless, in principle, it's the same thing. Okay, you look at the EU right now, supposedly these are socialist countries, social democracies. And in Germany and in the UK, you're getting incarcerated because of quote unquote hate speech. Okay, that's not freedom. All right, it's a velvet glove form of tyranny. In Cuba, this is the logical result of socialism. When you have a government that gets involved in everything and controls more and more and more, this is the result. Producers don't want to produce anything because they can't. See, freedom is actually a necessity. You have to be free to produce and do the things that you need to do, to be able to speak out necessarily, even if your ideas are bad. If you could speak them, we can have a debate, and if you have bad ideas, I could show you that you have bad ideas. But if you don't have freedom of speech, you can't. You don't have the competition of ideas. And, in the case of Europe, the quote unquote hate speech, it's an argument that can't be addressed by those governments. In Cuba, you can't criticize the government. Well, that's because the government couldn't tolerate criticism. If there was open criticism all the time of the government, it would collapse. They have to keep people afraid, because it's a government without merit, is what it is. But so yeah, I mean, you look at Romania, you look at Germany, you look at Canada. You look at what they're trying to do here in the United States. You look everywhere, all around the world. Look at China. Look at North Korea, Venezuela, and Cuba especially. Authoritarianism doesn't work. Anything aside from freedom, individuals going their own way without the interference of an institution, provided you don't violate the rights of other people. So let me rephrase that. Freedom is the ability to fulfill your productive goals, that and provided it doesn't violate the rights, it doesn't violate other people's productive goals. So you're not physically forcing anybody to do anything, by force at the point of a gun or whatever. You're not trying to fraud somebody. You collect resources based on lies. Well, that's, you need to be free from that. And there are fraudulent people too. If you were free from those things, if you didn't have people attacking Teslas and burning Teslas down, if people were able to just their own productive ends, they could buy Teslas. You could buy the basic necessities in Cuba. You can go and produce it. You can speak your mind in Germany. But yet these nihilists, and by the way, a lot of people on the right are just as bad too, and a lot of times it's based on religion. You look at this in the Middle East, for example, in Iran, in Saudi Arabia, those aren't free countries. And those are religious tyrannies. You look at Europe in the medieval period, right? So, and they always say, they say Christianity is, akin to freedom. Well, you look at medieval Europe, and that tells you right there it's not. So what you need is you need to have an absence of physical force. That means an absence of a government that goes outside the bounds of a protection institution, like military, police, courts, things like that. Miniarchyism, the smallest government that you can get by that still protects the citizenry. That's what's required for freedom. Anything more than that, anything that advocates for the subjugation of the individual, whether it be the name of some mystical being, whether it be Scientology, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, or be the state, nationalism like National Socialism, or the race, or Marxism of some kind. A lot of these isms is tyranny. Okay, so that's my rant on that. Again, I'll post the link and you can watch the video of this young lady going at what's going on in Cuba. And Cuba is one of the worst examples of this. But in principle, this is all over the world. So, I hope that Cuba can be free and that everybody around the world can be free as well.